The stars above Vefer Station twinkled with mechanical precision, artificial pinpricks painted across a vast black dome. In Docking Bay 17, a lone diplomatic shuttle gleamed like a stubborn pearl amid the grease-stained chrome of the Empire's hub. It had arrived precisely on schedule, bearing exactly one passenger. The crew gathered with thinly veiled curiosity. She stepped down the ramp in simple Earth attire, neatly pressed black slacks, a steel gray blouse, and a small silver pin with a crest of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. Unarmed, unimposing, human. "Is this it?" one of the Kroll TH guards muttered, lifting a brow ridge. "I thought the humans would send a delegation." "They did," his companion sneered. "A delegation of one. Females lead their diplomatic missions, apparently. Soft species." Her boots clicked softly on the platform. She paused, gazing calmly at the gaggle of Galactic Empire officials awaiting her, with bored expressions and data slates. Her face wore no smile, no fear. Just a calm, infuriating serenity. "I'm Rhonda Reyes, Cultural Liaison. Earth Delegation Neutral Observer Status," she said, tone as smooth as silk over steel. "Thank you for receiving me." Chancellor Yavrin barely looked up. His three ocular nodes swiveled in separate directions, two scanning her credentials, the third flicking with disdain. "Human," he said, making the word sound like a slur. "You're late. I arrived on time." "Then your presence is late," the Chancellor corrected, handing her data pad to an assistant without ceremony. "Proceed to decontamination. You'll be briefed before your presentation." She inclined her head with robotic politeness. Of course. They escorted her through the corridors, which pulsed with the Empire's peculiar mix of austerity and arrogance. Walls whispered in binary. Security drones hovered in sync. The Kroll TH guard, thick-shelled, pincer-armed, and perpetually agitated, watched her like she might sneeze acid. One of them leaned in close during the lift ride, clicking his mandibles thoughtfully. "Your species. You wear no armor. You carry no weapon. You are prey." Rhonda tilted her head just slightly. "We carry something better." He laughed, a sound like a woodchipper processing bones. "Words. Memory." The lift doors opened. He chuckled the whole way down the corridor. She was deposited in a bland interview room, surveillance globes blinking like red, nervous eyes. The table was too tall for her. The chair was deliberately uncomfortable. Still, she sat like it was a throne. 15 minutes later, a towering Jelvith security officer entered. Translucent skin, pupilless eyes, long fingers constantly in motion. She didn't flinch when he loomed. "You will surrender all biometric samples for cataloging," he said. Rhonda smiled lightly. "I won't. It is standard Empire protocol." "I'm not Empire." His lips peeled back in something like offense. "You are within Empire jurisdiction. And I'm an official representative of a sovereign neutral species, protected under Galactic Convention 39. Paragraph 2. Subclause A." She paused just long enough to make him feel inadequate. "You've read it." He didn't answer. Instead, he produced a scanning wand and moved it toward her. "I'd reconsider that," she said, voice quiet. The wand buzzed closer. She didn't move. Her voice remained tranquil. "If you complete that scan, my diplomatic credentials will automatically transmit a code black to my homeworld. Earth will interpret it as hostile action, and they will act accordingly." "Earth has no authority here," he hissed. Rhonda's tone didn't change. Neither did the last species that tried this. There was a long pause. The wand retracted. She resumed reviewing her notes as if nothing had happened. After a moment, the Jelvith turned and stormed out. That evening, a low-ranking tactical officer named Jazzer was assigned to monitor her quarters. He was young, feather-crested, and eager to prove himself. He stared through the observation window as she brewed tea from a small silver pouch and arranged her bed with military precision. Not soft, he realized. Precise. Calculated. Like a predator that smiled before biting. He activated the mic. "Why do you people send women to war zones?" She glanced up mid-sip. "Why do you people assume women are fragile?" "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." Jazzer blinked. You're odd. Rhonda smiled. So are you. As soon as she slept, an unofficial team entered her room. The excuse would later be that a suspicious anomaly had been detected. Completely fabricated, of course. Chancellor Yavrin had approved it himself. They approached her bed silently, scanning for hidden weapons. Nothing. She was awake before the first step crossed the threshold. I advise you leave, she said from the shadows. Before this gets written down. One snorted. Human threats are. She tossed something on the floor. A dime-sized disc. It beeped. Across the galaxy, Earth's flagship satellite received the signal. On Earth, a diplomat stirred from his desk. In a classified compound beneath the Rockies, Captain Mason Cross put down his tea. His eyes narrowed. He pressed a single button. Code black. Across Vephyr Station, power flickered. Communications surged. A low, haunting tone echoed through the halls. It sounded like Earth's national anthem, slowed to a funeral march. Back in her room, the lead officer growled. What did you do? I reminded my people that rule number 1 has been broken, Rhonda said. The words stopped them cold. Rule number 1? Jazzer asked over the mic. She looked into the surveillance camera with a calm that chilled to the bone. Don't touch the Earth's women. The Chancellor summoned his war council. He was furious, demanding explanations for the loss of external comms, the malfunctioning AI systems, the fact that 6 of their satellites had just reoriented themselves to point inward. She was just one human, he spat. What madness is this? Ambassador Thrix, older and wiser than the rest, said nothing. His eyes were wide. He had once attended a summit with humans. He remembered the laughter, the jokes, the ridiculous hand gestures, and the polite way a smiling man had warned an entire room that if their species ever crossed the line, the humans wouldn't retaliate. They would eradicate. Thrix pulled up an old file, long buried. A video. Black and white. Grainy. A human general during the Mars rebellions. Speaking calmly before orbital bombardment. We don't start fights. But we do finish them. Fast. Permanently. And without needing to raise our voices. Thrix rose from his seat. We need to apologize. Apologize? We are the Empire. Then may the stars weep for us. Back on Earth, Captain Mason Cross emerged from his underground command station and walked toward a waiting fleet of stealth warships. Each bore no insignia, only the silver emblem of Earth's First Strike Command. He boarded the lead ship and addressed the silent crew. Prepare for transit. Target, Vephyr Station. This is not a war. They waited for the but. Cross simply added, it's a lesson. Then he smiled. Not a kind smile. A very human smile. The sort that ancient wolves wore before they pounced. Back in her quarters, Rhonda sat quietly. The guards had been reassigned. Jazzer still watched, but now from a respectful distance. He leaned toward his console. I don't understand, he whispered. You didn't even resist. Why? She looked at him, expression unreadable. Because resistance is something we save for people worth resisting. He swallowed. What happens now? She turned her gaze to the stars beyond the window. They remember rule number 1. The lights in the hall dimmed. Across Vephyr Station, alarm systems that had never been tested began to howl. And somewhere in the vast black of space, Earth's retaliation was already en route. Silent, surgical, inevitable. The humans hadn't screamed. They hadn't threatened. They had smiled. And now the stars would burn for it. The Galactic Council chambers floated above the twin suns of Cyrix 8, encased in a gleaming, translucent dome of pressure-forged plasma steel. It was a marvel of cooperative alien engineering, a symbol of unity that had overseen centuries of peace, trade, and controlled warfare. That symbol now quivered slightly under the weight of a silent dread. Representatives from over 200 species packed the tiers of the chamber, many murmuring in their native tongues, others blinking furiously at translation nodes. Holoscreens glitched in and out as data from Vephyr Station continued to come in. Interference, sabotage, unexplained energy fluctuations. Most dismissed it as a minor skirmish, another human tantrum. Until the doors opened. He walked in without guards. No escort. Just polished black boots over marble, a crisp Earth Forces uniform, and a warm smile that didn't quite reach the eyes. "Ambassador Mason Cross," announced the Council Herald, his voice a strained attempt at formality, "representing the Terran sovereignty." Mason gave a slight bow. "Thank you for the invitation. Though, in fairness, I wasn't invited. I was summoned." He moved toward the central podium and set a small, nondescript briefcase at his feet. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. Chancellor Yavrin of the Empire sat in the central throne. He didn't rise. Didn't even blink with all three of his eyes. You arrive with no fleet, no entourage, and yet you posture as if Earth holds leverage. Posture. Mason's grin widened. "You think this is posturing? Chancellor, I'm just a guy with a suitcase and a grudge. You'll know when we start posturing." The room murmured. Some chuckled. Others frowned. Yavrin leaned forward, mandibles twitching. Earth's overreaction to a procedural inspection aboard Vephyr Station. "You mean the assault on a non-combatant diplomatic civilian? It was legal under Empire law. Not under Galactic Convention 39. Paragraph 2. Subclause A." Mason winked at Yavrin. "I hear you're a fan." Ambassador Thrix, from the Tlarn species, spoke next. Elder, soft-voiced, always careful. "We acknowledge the event was regrettable. But surely Earth understands the scale of this body. We can mediate." "I didn't come for mediation." Mason's tone shifted fractionally. The warmth faded from his eyes, replaced by something ancient, patient, inevitable. "I came to make sure you understand what comes next." "Is that a threat?" General Clactor asked. He was from the Kragner Dominion, 9 feet of scales and ego. "The Empire holds half this council seats. Earth holds 1. You'll be isolated. We prefer the term independent." Mason looked directly at Clactor. "But let me explain something I think you've all forgotten." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, outdated datapad. The kind used before neural-synced interfaces became the norm. He tapped it once. Holograms projected into the chamber. Grainy footage. Static and timestamp overlays. Surveillance from Vephyr Station. It showed Rhonda Reyes seated calmly, being surrounded. Her warning. The failed biometric scan. The team breaking into her room. The disk on the floor. The moment everything changed. Silence. Then, a second video. Short. 15 seconds. Earth's High Command receiving the signal. Mason standing behind a desk, sipping tea. A single word from him, confirmed. Mason tapped again. The feed ended. "Miss Reyes is currently in medical recovery," he said. "Physically intact. Mentally unwavering. She knew exactly what she was doing. We all did." Yavrin laughed, a sharp, high-pitched rasp. "So she was bait. She was justice. You manipulated us." No, Mason's voice dropped into something quieter, deadlier. "We simply trusted you to be exactly who you are." More murmurs. The meaning sank in slowly. Earth hadn't reacted. Earth had planned. Rhonda wasn't a victim. She was a trigger, a fuse. And now the bomb had already begun ticking. Thrix looked disturbed. "You're escalating this into war." Mason nodded once. "No, we're escalating this into consequence." Clactor scoffed. "Your species thinks too highly of itself." Mason raised an eyebrow. "No, General. We just think very precisely of ourselves. You see, we don't start wars we can't finish. But we're very good at finishing ones we didn't start." He stepped away from the podium and opened the briefcase. No weapons. No explosives. Just a datapad and a series of glowing crystals. "These," he said, holding one up, "are data cores from your outer colonies. The ones you didn't know were already compromised. Internal security feeds. Asset maps. Communication logs. Everything we've been collecting since you started sniffing around our diplomatic probes 2 years ago." He inserted one into the Council holofeed. Dozens of screens lit up across the dome. Kragna military stations offline. Imperial warp beacons redirected. Fuel lines rerouted into uninhabitable systems. One feed showed a squadron of cloaked Earth warships appearing inside a Kragner port facility. They didn't fire. They simply hovered, decloaked, and waited. Just a message. We're already here. Clactor stood, fists clenched. You've invaded our territory. We've been politely occupying your mistakes, Mason replied smoothly. Thrix exhaled sharply. What is your endgame? To make sure you never forget rule number 1. More silence. Yavrin growled. This is political madness. No, Mason said. It's insurance. You crossed the line. Earth doesn't demand compensation. We don't want resources. We don't care for apologies. We simply want to be left alone. He stepped back toward the center, eyes sweeping the room. But if you ever lay a finger on another one of ours, if you even think about violating a treaty, harassing a civilian, or using your power to corner us, then what you've seen so far of Station, your colonies going dark, your fleets blinking out of existence, will be remembered as the warning shot. Thrix was the first to speak again. Quiet. Measured. There's something you're not telling us. A piece missing. Mason nodded. You're right. He tapped the datapad again. Another feed lit up. A timer. Operation Tooth and Claw, he said. It was never about retaliating. It was about testing your response, watching how far you push, measuring your instincts. The timer counted down from 3 minutes. We now know what kind of leaders you are, what kind of empire you run, and more importantly, we know how fast you fold. Yavrin stood, voice shrill. You wouldn't dare detonate. It's not a detonation. Mason looked up at the dome's apex. A faint shimmer passed through it, an atmospheric anomaly. Only a few council members noticed. He continued, voice almost friendly. Earth is deploying diplomatic terraforms. Subtle environmental shifts designed to alter your military zones into uninhabitable quarantine zones. No casualties. Just slow, irreversible change. Bioweapons. Thrix whispered. No, Mason said. Something much more terrifying. He pulled out one more crystal. Inserted it. The chamber lights flickered. All the screens showed her. Rhonda Reyes, seated again. Calm. Still. Speaking into the camera, to the Galactic Empire. You made a mistake. You thought the human smile was submission. It's not. It's a warning. And now, you've seen the teeth behind it. The message ended. Mason folded his arms. This is the last transmission she authorized. Clactor bared his teeth. You've declared war. No, Mason said. We've declared memory. He collected his briefcase, turned to leave. Thrix stepped forward. Ambassador Cross. Wait. Mason paused. Thrix hesitated, then said, You could have destroyed us. Mason shrugged. We still might. But you didn't. He turned his head slightly. Because she's alive. That's the only reason. If she hadn't survived, this room would be space debris right now. Yavrin hissed, You dare threaten. Mason's voice became ice. I'm not threatening you. I'm educating you. He left without another word. The door closed behind him. The entire chamber sat in suffocating stillness. Outside the council, Mason walked calmly to his ship. Jazzer was waiting. Sir, the young officer said, standing straight. I've reviewed the footage. And I understand now. Do you? Mason asked, eyeing him. She warned us. We didn't listen. That's a pattern in galactic politics, Mason replied. But humans, we write our warnings in blood when we're ignored. Jazzer nodded solemnly. Is the operation over? No, Mason said. This was phase 1. He looked up at the stars. Somewhere beyond them, dozens of ghost fleets were already moving. Silent, undetectable, pre-programmed. Just in case. Now, Mason said, with a faint smile, we see who's smart enough to stand down. And for the first time in recorded council history, the Galactic Chamber entered emergency session, with no loud debates, no shouting, just quiet, collective fear. They had touched a human woman. Now they had humanity's attention. Somewhere in the dead black of Sector Y-419, the stars flickered, not from their natural pulse, but because something was eclipsing them. Hundreds of cloaked vessels, silent as death, hovered in the void. No transmissions, no radiation, just mass in motion. Earth's First Strike Command was in position. Captain Mason Cross stood at the helm of the Vigilant Whisper, his eyes fixed on the soft green glow of a tactical display. Each green that represented a target acquired. Not a guess. Not a probability. Confirmed coordinates, military depots, power nexuses, command citadels, strategic worm gate stabilizers. Everything the Galactic Empire believed made them invincible. Behind him, Commander Ellis adjusted her earpiece. All squads report ready, sir. The Kragner Dominion just went to alert status. They're expecting something. They're about to get it, Mason replied, voice smooth cold. Initiate operation, welcome Matt. Across 12 systems, Earth's hunter-killer pods activated. They had been dormant for years, disguised as cargo containers, deep space beacons, even mining equipment. Now, they bloomed into surgical assault drones, sleek, silent, and terrifyingly efficient. They didn't level cities. They didn't burn landscapes. They targeted infrastructure, communications relays, gravitational tethers, oxygen processors on military moons. Every pod hit its mark with millisecond precision. Within 20 minutes, 5 major systems lost all contact with Imperial Command. General Clactor of the Kragner Dominion howled as his battlecruiser's navigation failed mid-jump, slamming them back into real space near a red dwarf sun. Their ship spun, systems cascading in critical errors, as dozens of small, unmarked vessels slipped past them like sharks circling a bleeding whale. "We are under attack," he bellowed. "From who? Where are they?" screamed his second-in-command. Clactor watched helplessly as one of their war frigates vanished in a blink. Gone, atomized from a single pinpoint impact from a weapon Earth hadn't even declared. This wasn't war. This was humiliation. On Earth, in the underground complex beneath Yellowstone, Rhonda Reyes stood for the first time in days. Bruised but alive, her expression unreadable as she watched the live tactical feeds unfold across the main screen. A voice echoed behind her. "You sure you're ready for this?" She turned. Her brother stood there, suited up in black armor, with no insignia. "Special Operations. Ghost Division. I was ready the moment they put hands on me," Rhonda said, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. "They thought I was bait, but I was the trap." Her brother nodded. "Then it's time." A diplomatic shuttle, identical to the one she'd first boarded weeks ago, was prepped. Except this one had hidden armor plating, jamming systems, and a classified interior. She boarded without ceremony. Destination: the Empire's last unviolated stronghold. Their capital, the Raxus Prime. Mason's voice came through the comms as the shuttle entered warp. "We'll keep the stars quiet for you. Just say the word." Rhonda smiled faintly. "You'll hear it." Meanwhile, the Raxus Prime was unraveling. Civilian panic was escalating. Media systems blinked with flickering images of Earth's silent offensive. Rumors spread faster than official denials. Entire moons gone dark, fleets lost mid-transit, Imperial protocols overridden. Chancellor Yavrin sat in his private chamber, surrounded by advisors too frightened to offer strategy. His eyes, all 3 of them, darted from screen to screen as reality fell apart. "They're not attacking cities," he whispered. "Why aren't they attacking cities?" "No civilian casualties," one aide said. "Not one. Only infrastructure." "Then they're playing with us." "No, Chancellor," Thrix said quietly, stepping into the chamber. "They're demonstrating restraint." Yavrin turned to him with fury. "You dare call this restraint?" "Yes. Because if they wanted total destruction, we'd already be dead." A silence fell, broken only by the sound of a high-pitched alert from their orbital satellites. "Unidentified shuttle approaching," the system AI said flatly. "Non-hostile configuration. Diplomatic codes detected." Yavrin's blood ran cold. Who? Thrix already knew. The shuttle landed in the Grand Hall of the Empire, as millions watched on broadcast. The doors opened. Rhonda Reyes stepped out, alone, in the same simple black outfit as before. No armor, no weapon. But this time, she wasn't the lamb. She was the wolf that had come home. She walked into the high throne chamber, flanked by trembling guards who weren't sure if escorting her made them traitors or survivors. Rhonda reached the center and waited. The silence pressed on the room like a physical weight. Yavrin stood slowly. "Why have you come here?" "To end this," she replied. "You dare." "No." She raised a hand, and the room dimmed. A projector on her wrist activated, displaying a live feed. Thorax's primary defense grid deactivated. Earth drones hovered above power stations, untouched but ready. Another screen, orbital command disabled, replaced by Earth's AI, politely maintaining traffic to avoid civilian casualties. "I came to give you a choice," Rhonda said calmly. "You either sign a full and unconditional stand-down of all Empire hostilities toward Earth and its interests, or in 3 minutes, we erase the concept of the Empire from every map." Yavrin's voice broke. "You can't do this." "I already did," she said. "This isn't revenge. This is deterrence. This is memory." Thrix stepped forward, looking at her with something close to respect. "Why are you being merciful?" Rhonda looked him in the eye. "Because if I wasn't, you'd know it." Yavrin slammed a fist against the console. "You'll never be feared. You're just humans." "Yes," she said, "and that's the part you never understood. We don't need to conquer to be feared. We just need to remind you that we exist." The countdown ticked on her display. 1 minute left. Yavrin's resolve cracked. He dropped into his seat. "Fine. We stand down. You win." Rhonda tapped a small pad. A signal went out. Across the stars, Earth's fleets powered down weapons. Cloak ships re-entered warp. The hunter-killer pods deactivated, broadcasting non-lethal status. Operation ceased. The Empire had surrendered without a single shot fired on a civilian. As she turned to leave, Thrix followed. "There's something different about your kind," he said. "The more we study you, the less we understand." "That's because you study our strength," Rhonda said, without turning. "But our real power is what we choose not to do." Back aboard, the vigilant whisper, Mason Cross received the signal. He leaned back in his chair, letting out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "She pulled it off," Ellis said beside him. "Of course she did," Mason replied. "She's a Reyes." He stood, nodded to the crew, and added, "Let's take the long way home. Let them sit with what just happened." Back on Earth, news outlets flashed one simple phrase across every channel. "Empire stands down after human woman's ultimatum." No parades. No chest beating. Just acknowledgement. Silent, undeniable power. In the days that followed, a new phrase began circulating across the stars. First as a whisper, then as law, scrawled on walls, repeated in training academies, printed in treaties. Rule number 1, don't touch the Earth's women. No one needed to explain why anymore. It had already been written in the stars. In the aftermath of the Empire's silence, the galaxy exhaled. Not a breath of relief, but of stunned realization. Across thousands of systems, the phrase Earth's Rule Number 1 began showing up in places no Terran had ever stepped. Spray painted on the sides of slum ships, whispered between mercenaries, carved into the stone of war colleges. Don't touch the Earth's women. It wasn't a law, not officially. It was something more enduring, a truth branded into collective memory. On Thoraxis Prime, the once mighty heart of the Empire, the repair drones were still picking through the rubble of pride. Imperial banners no longer draped government buildings. Some had been burned, others quietly folded and stored away by trembling hands. No one had dared to touch Rhonda Reyes when she left the high chamber. She had walked out alone, under her own power, flanked by silence. The return trip to Earth was uneventful. Escort ships flanked her shuttle, not because she needed protection, but because they wanted to be close. Like insects orbiting a flame, mesmerized and wary. She spent most of the journey silent, watching the stars streak past with that same unreadable calm. But her mind wasn't quiet. She had won, but it hadn't felt like victory. Not really. More like something being corrected. Something ancient and primal. There was no joy in forcing an empire to kneel. There was only necessity. At Earth HQ, she was greeted with a standing ovation. Military officers, diplomats, scientists, even a few off-duty operatives, everyone rose when she walked in. The applause was thunderous, long, sincere. But she didn't smile. Mason Cross stood beside the podium, hands behind his back, jaw tight. When the noise died down, he took a step forward and handed her a simple data chip. "It's all yours," he said. She took it. All of it. Every comm intercept, classified report, fleet log, orbital scan. "You earned it." She looked him in the eye. "You think I wanted this for the credit?" "No," Mason said. "I think you wanted it for closure." He turned to the room and gave a nod. "Leave us." The room emptied in minutes. She stayed standing while he poured tea into two mismatched cups. Earth's top war strategist, and he still brewed his own tea. She accepted the cup, sipped. "Better than I remember," she said. "I added cinnamon. Heard it helps with righteous indignation." They sat across from each other. No more politics. No more ceremony. Just two humans who had broken an empire with nothing more than patience, planning, and the right line crossed. "You knew they'd take the bait," she said. "I hoped," Mason corrected. "But it wasn't guaranteed. Empires sometimes resist stupidity. Not this one." Rhonda exhaled slowly. It was too easy. No. It was hard in the right way. The trick was never force. It was getting them to make the mistake themselves. She stared at her cup. "They almost killed me. But they didn't. That doesn't make it better." Mason was quiet for a moment. Then he leaned forward. "Rhonda, do you know what the real mission was?" She looked up. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't dominance. It was instruction. He held up a finger. "One simple lesson." She nodded slowly. "Rule number 1. "Exactly. A rule backed not by violence, but memory." "I hate that it had to be me," she whispered. "You volunteered. I didn't think they'd go that far." "They always go that far." She swallowed hard. "And what if next time they don't stop?" Mason's voice dropped into something steel cord. "Then next time, there won't be a next time." The Empire got off easy. She studied him, searching for anything beneath the polished charm and ever-present smirk. There was something there, now worn weary. A man who had been playing chess with knives. "Did it change you?" she asked. His smile faltered. "I think it reminded me who we are." "And who is that?" Mason leaned back. "We're the species that says please, before we make you regret everything." She laughed once, sharp and bitter. "That's the Earth way." The door opened without warning. Her brother stepped in. Battle gear gone. Civilian clothes. But the stance hadn't changed. Always alert. Always assessing. He nodded at Mason. "Permission to speak freely?" "Always," Mason replied. Her brother looked at her. "You're not done." She raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me." "They think we're done. That we've had our vengeance. That the humans are satisfied. They're wrong." Rhonda stood slowly. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying there are still those out there who didn't get the message. The ones who watched and waited. Who will test the edges of the rule." Mason nodded. "It's already begun." Quiet probes. Mercenary contractors hired to study Terran settlements. Covert recruitment of former Imperial operatives. "They're testing us again." Rhonda's hand tightened around her cup. "Then we test them back." "Not with war," Mason said. "No," her brother added. "With stories." Mason's eyes twinkled. "Let the galaxy tell itself ghost stories. About the humans. About what happens when you make them mad." Rhonda's mind flashed back to Vephyr Station. To that Krull guard who had whispered in her face, "You are prey." She had let him live. She remembered that. "We'll give them legends," she said quietly. "Make fear our diplomat." Mason handed her a new file. "Already ahead of you. We've designated the new protocol, Operation Folk Memory." She opened the file. Her own image appeared. Holos of her standing before the Empire. Voice calm, posture deadly. Quotes she never gave, but ones that served the narrative. She ended the war with a whisper. "The woman who tamed the stars. The ghost queen of Earth." She raised an eyebrow. "You're mythologizing me? We're making damn sure the next fool remembers your face." She closed the file. "Fine. But let's make one thing clear." "I'm listening." If anyone lays a hand on another Earth citizen, man, woman, child, doesn't matter. I don't want them to hear rumors. I want them to know. Mason grinned. That Earth remembers. Her brother stepped forward. And Earth finishes. They stood in silence, 3 humans against a galaxy that was slowly, grudgingly realizing just how badly it had misjudged them. Elsewhere, in the ruins of a once great empire, Chancellor Yavrin sat alone in a forgotten chamber, stripped of rank, voice silenced, but not memory. He replayed the footage every night. Her face, her voice. That sentence, "Don't touch the Earth's women." His aides had scattered. His armies dissolved. All that remained was that moment when he'd seen true power, and it had smiled at him like a schoolteacher explaining a lesson one last time. The new regime, a coalition built from the ashes of fear, had officially banned anti-Earth sentiment. Not because they agreed, because they remembered. On a distant moon in the Tlarn sector, a young alien cadet was being taught galactic history. He raised a hand. Is it true that a single human brought down the Empire? The instructor, a weary veteran of the old order, sighed. Not just any human. He tapped a holoscreen. Rhonda's face filled the room. Unblinking. Calm. She was the lesson. The warning. The consequence. The cadet frowned. But why didn't they just kill her? The instructor gave a grim smile. They tried. And far away, under the deep shadows of Earth's oldest mountain range, Rhonda stood alone at a cliff's edge, wind catching her coat, eyes scanning the stars. They were quieter now. Not peaceful, but wary. She tapped her comm status. Mason's voice came through. We've detected 2 more scout vessels near Mars. We're watching. Let them see us. Copy that. And Mason, yeah. If they forget rule number 1. There was a pause. They won't, he said. Not ever again. She smiled, finally, letting it stretch across her face like a drawn blade. Not warmth, not comfort, but the expression that had shaken an empire. A smile with teeth. Behind her, carved into the rock, were the words no one ever dared to ignore. Rule number 1. Don't touch the Earth's women, or we will end you politely. And for the first time in galactic history, the stars learned what it meant to cross the line Earth had drawn with velvet gloves and steel beneath.